You think you know what evil looks like. You imagine it with sharp teeth, a cruel grin, a shadow that everyone can see. But the truth is far more unsettling. Evil rarely appears as a monster. It wears a friendly smile. It offers a helping hand. It tells you what you want to hear, and it does so with such ease that you ignore the unease in your gut. These people slip past your defenses not because they are stronger, but because they seem harmless. They hide in plain sight, weaving their intentions into everyday moments, until one day you realize the damage is already done. The question is, how many signs have you been ignoring? Most people walk through life assuming they can easily spot the dangerous ones. We picture villains as obvious, marked by cruelty or malice so plain that no one could miss it. Yet reality proves otherwise. The people who cause the deepest harm rarely announce themselves. They are parents, friends, co-workers, even leaders who seem trustworthy at first glance. Their power lies not in being openly hostile, but in moving quietly, unnoticed, while others dismiss the small warnings. The ancients reminded us that appearances deceive, and wisdom demands we look beneath the surface. To understand evil is not to chase monsters, but to pay attention to the subtle patterns that reveal what someone truly is. This is not about paranoia, but clarity. Once you see these hidden signs, you can guard your peace, protect your relationships, and walk through life with eyes fully open. Evil hides in plain sight, and that is what makes it so dangerous. Rarely do you meet someone who shows their true face from the beginning. Instead, they blend into the background of daily life, wearing the same expressions, using the same words, and moving through the same routines as everyone else. They do not stand out as villains. In fact, they often seem ordinary, sometimes even admirable. A neighbor who greets you warmly, a colleague who volunteers to help, a friend who always knows the right thing to say. But beneath that surface, their intentions are far from kind. The Stoics warned against trusting appearances. They understood that a person's nature is revealed not in moments of ease, but in how they act over time, especially when no reward is attached. Someone who seems generous when others are watching may turn selfish the moment attention fades. Someone who offers praise today may sharpen those words into insults tomorrow. True character is not in single gestures, but in repeated patterns. Think of the wolf dressed in sheep's clothing. It does not frighten the flock by showing its teeth. It blends in, earning trust, waiting patiently. Evil works the same way. The danger is not in the obvious enemy, but in the one you welcome into your circle without question. That is why the first sign is awareness itself. Do not assume that evil looks like evil. More often, it looks like everyone else, until the mask begins to crack. One of the most common disguises evil wears is charm. It is not the blunt cruelty of an enemy that fools us, but the warm smile, the attentive ear, the effortless way someone makes you feel special. At first, this charm feels harmless, even flattering. You might think you have found a friend, an ally, or a mentor who truly understands you. But charm, unlike genuine kindness, often has an edge. It works like bait on a hook, shiny, tempting, but meant to catch, not to give. History offers countless examples. Some of the most destructive leaders in the world rose to power not by force at first, but by charisma. They won people's hearts before they took their freedoms. They mastered the art of saying what others longed to hear, creating an image of trustworthiness while quietly building their own power. And in smaller ways, we see this in daily life. A co-worker who flatters the boss, a friend who showers you with attention, a stranger who seems too eager to please. The Stoics would remind us that words and gestures mean little unless backed by steady action. Real kindness asks for nothing in return. Manipulative charm, however, often demands loyalty, silence, or obedience later on. The test is time. Pay attention to whether the charm fades when it no longer serves them, or if it transforms into subtle pressure to repay the kindness they once showed. Charm, when used as a mask, is not a gift. It is the first thread in a web meant to trap. Words are powerful tools, and in the hands of someone with ill intent, they become weapons. Evil people rarely strike with fists first. Instead, they twist language in ways that leave you doubting yourself. They misquote what you said, shift the meaning of your words, or conveniently forget promises they made while holding you accountable for every detail of yours. Over time, their conversations are not exchanges, but traps designed to confuse and weaken your sense of clarity. Consider how gaslighting works. A person insists you misremember events, that your emotions are exaggerated, that your judgment cannot be trusted. At first, you resist, but eventually you begin to wonder if they are right. That seed of doubt is their victory. Once you question your own perception, you become easier to control. They need not raise their voice or make a direct threat. The quiet twisting of words does the damage for them. Philosophers warned of sophists in ancient Greece, those who used clever arguments not to find truth but to win power. Their aim was never wisdom, only control. In the same way, manipulative people use words as nets to entangle others. The Stoic response is to return to reason. Ask yourself, does this person's speech lead to greater clarity or greater confusion? Do their words align with reality or only with their convenience? The hidden sign here is consistency. Words that serve only to shield themselves and harm others reveal a heart that cannot be trusted. Evil often works in whispers, not shouts. One of its most subtle tactics is planting seeds of fear and doubt in the minds of others. It does not always attack directly. Instead, it drops small comments, quiet suggestions, or seemingly harmless jokes that weaken your confidence over time. They might question your abilities, hint that others are against you, or remind you of your failures in moments when you most need encouragement. Like a drop of poison in a cup of water, the dose may be small, but taken repeatedly, it changes everything. This method is effective because it preys on what already exists inside us. We all carry insecurities, moments of weakness, regrets we wish to forget. A manipulative person learns these quickly and uses them as levers. They know when to press, when to remind you of your shortcomings, when to suggest that you are not strong enough without them. Fear is their cage, and doubt is the lock. The Stoics warned that our minds are the one place we must guard above all else. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the things we fear are often more dangerous in imagination than in reality. The evil person exploits this truth by feeding those shadows until they seem larger than life. The hidden sign here is how someone makes you feel after speaking with them. Do you feel stronger, clearer, and more grounded, or weaker, uncertain, and smaller than before? Pay attention to that difference. It is often the first sign that someone is not standing beside you, but standing against you. Not all harm arrives in the form of cruelty. Sometimes it hides in the shape of generosity. There are people who offer gifts, favors, or help so freely that at first you feel grateful, even blessed. Yet soon enough, the cost of that kindness reveals itself. A favor that seemed unconditional is remembered later as a debt. A gift once given becomes a chain, pulled tight when they need something in return. What appeared to be generosity was in truth a subtle form of control. This kind of giving is not about love or compassion. It is a transaction disguised as kindness. Think of a spider weaving a web. The web is delicate, almost beautiful, but its purpose is to entrap. In the same way, favors from manipulative people are never truly free. They bind you with unspoken obligations, reminding you of what you owe them at moments when resistance feels impossible. The difference between genuine generosity and disguised generosity is simple. True giving expects nothing. It leaves no weight on your shoulders, no lingering sense of debt. It nourishes you without claiming a piece of your freedom. But when someone's kindness is always followed by reminders, guilt, or demands, it is no longer kindness. It is leverage. The Stoics would advise gratitude for what is freely given, but caution against becoming ensnared by hidden motives. The question is not whether someone gives, but why they give. If their generosity ties you down instead of setting you free, it is not a gift at all. It is a chain, and recognizing it early is the only way to break free. There is a subtle pleasure some people take in the misfortune of others. It may not always be loud laughter or open celebration, but a quiet smile when someone stumbles, a glimmer in the eye when a rival suffers, a sense of satisfaction when others fall short. This hidden joy in another's pain is one of the clearest signs of a dark heart. Most people feel some degree of empathy when they see suffering, even if they cannot help. But the one who delights in it reveals something twisted within. History remembers the Roman crowds cheering in the Colosseum as gladiators fought to the death. The entertainment was not in victory, but in watching blood spill, bones break, and lives end. It is the same spirit, though quieter, when a person today smirks at your mistake or spreads news of your failure with a hint of pleasure. They may disguise it as humor or pretend it is harmless gossip, but beneath it lies a hunger for destruction. The Stoics would say that true strength never needs to feed on another's weakness. A wise person may acknowledge flaws and failures, but they do not rejoice in them. Evil, however, draws nourishment from the fall of others because it cannot rise on its own. The hidden sign here is simple. Watch how someone reacts to the struggles of others. Do they offer compassion, or do they glow with satisfaction? The answer tells you more about their soul than any words ever could. Another mask evil wears is victimhood. It may sound strange at first. How can someone who harms others pretend to be the one who suffers? Yet this is one of their most effective strategies. By presenting themselves as the wronged party, they shift attention away from their actions and place the burden of guilt on others. Every story they tell has the same thread. They are misunderstood, betrayed, treated unfairly. They rarely take responsibility because in their world, blame always belongs elsewhere. This pattern becomes clear over time. A person who constantly paints themselves as the victim will have endless tales of injustice, but if you look closely, the details never quite align. Conflicts seem to follow them wherever they go. Relationships collapse, jobs end badly, friendships sour, and yet in their telling, it is never their fault. To question them is to risk becoming the next villain in their story. The Stoics taught that strength comes from owning one's choices, not denying them. To accept responsibility is to live honestly. To reject it is to live in falsehood. Evil thrives in that falsehood, because as long as they remain the victim, they can continue to manipulate without consequence. The hidden sign is repetition. Once or twice, anyone can be wronged. But when a person is always the victim, never the cause, it is a signal worth noticing. True victims seek healing. False victims seek control. And the latter will not hesitate to use your sympathy as their shield. A common tactic of those with hidden malice is isolation. They know that if you remain connected to people who see clearly, their deception will be exposed. So, slowly and carefully, they work to cut those ties. It may begin with small comments, criticisms of your friends, doubts about your family, subtle reminders of how others don't understand you. At first, it seems like they are simply concerned, but the real goal is to place distance between you and anyone who might reveal their true nature. The method is simple: divide and control. Like wolves driving prey away from the herd, they separate you from your sources of strength, leaving you more vulnerable. Isolation does not always mean physical distance. It can be emotional as well. They create mistrust, making you question the loyalty of others, until slowly you begin to believe they are the only one who truly cares for you. That belief is the chain they rely on. The Stoics would remind us that truth does not fear witnesses. A person who speaks honestly welcomes many eyes and many voices, because they have nothing to hide. But someone who constantly urges you to doubt others while insisting only they can be trusted reveals a dangerous intent. The hidden sign is not just their words, but their effect. Do you feel more connected to those who love you, or increasingly alone with only them? If your world grows smaller around a single person, you are not gaining closeness, you are losing freedom. Control is the currency of evil. It rarely shows up in dramatic forms at first. Instead, it begins with small intrusions, deciding what time you should arrive, correcting the way you speak, questioning your choices, offering advice that sounds helpful but leaves you dependent. Piece by piece, they chip away at your freedom until you find yourself adjusting your life around their expectations. What once felt like harmless suggestions begins to feel like chains. This hunger for control is not about care, though it may appear that way. It is about power. To direct the actions of others gives them a sense of dominance, a quiet reassurance that they matter because you bend to their will. Some exercise it openly, barking orders or demanding obedience. Others do it silently, through guilt, manipulation, or constant correction. In both cases, the goal is the same: to shrink your autonomy until you no longer feel the strength to act without their approval. The Stoics were clear about where true freedom lies. It is not in possessions or in status, but in the will, the ability to choose your response regardless of circumstance. Evil people try to invade this inner citadel by training you to doubt your own judgment. The hidden sign is subtle, when every decision begins to feel like it must pass through them first. Ask yourself, are they guiding you towards strength and independence, or are they shaping you into someone easier to control? If it is the latter, their mask is slipping, and what you are seeing is not love, but domination. Some of the darkest intentions are hidden beneath the appearance of righteousness. A person may speak often of morality, justice, or faith, presenting themselves as a model of virtue. They may quote sacred texts, uphold rules, or claim to act for the greater good. Yet their actions tell a different story. When virtue is used as a costume, it becomes a weapon, shielding them from suspicion while granting them authority over others. They do not live rightly for its own sake, but to build an image that cannot be questioned. This kind of false righteousness is especially dangerous because it appeals to our respect for good. When someone seems upright, we hesitate to challenge them. Their words carry weight, not because of truth, but because of the mask they wear. History is filled with such examples. Leaders who preached morality while committing cruelty, teachers who spoke of virtue while exploiting those in their care. Even in small personal ways, we encounter it. A friend who insists on their own goodness while quietly judging and condemning everyone else. The Stoics warned that true virtue requires no boasting. It is proven in deeds, not in declarations. The person who loudly insists on their own goodness is often the one most in need of scrutiny. The hidden sign is in the gap between words and actions. Do their choices align with the values they claim, or do they use those values as a shield while serving themselves? Righteousness does not demand recognition. It shines quietly. When it becomes a performance, it ceases to be virtue and becomes something far more dangerous. Betrayal is not usually a sudden act, but a pattern that repeats until you finally see it. At first it looks small, a promise broken, a secret casually shared, a plan quietly changed without telling you. You forgive because you want to believe the best. You explain it away as stress or misunderstanding. But over time, the same cracks open in the same places. Trust you give them today becomes the advantage they use tomorrow. This repetition is not an accident. It is a map of their nature. Think of Judas not only in the final moment of the kiss, but in the many small choices that led there. Betrayal grows in the shadows of convenience, where loyalty costs something. The person who harms you this way tends to be consistent in one sense. They are dependable only when it benefits them. When pressure rises, they choose themselves. When opportunity appears, they sell your confidence for short-term gain. You start to notice that your losses often match their wins. The Stoics advised us to judge by deeds over time. One mistake does not define a person, but a chain of the same mistake does. Pay attention to the rhythm. Do they apologize and then repeat the act? Do they show remorse only when confronted? Do they ask for trust while treating it as disposable? Real remorse changes behavior. False remorse changes the subject. Protecting yourself does not require cynicism. It requires memory. Keep a quiet record in your mind. Match their words to their history. If their path is marked by broken agreements and convenient forgetfulness, believe the pattern. Trust can be rebuilt, but only with those who treat it as something sacred, not as a tool. When a person turns loyalty into currency, the price will always be your peace. There are moments when the mask slips and you catch a glimpse of what lies beneath. It may be in a smile that does not reach the eyes, or in a tone of sympathy that feels rehearsed, hollow, and just slightly out of place. The words may be right, but the warmth is missing. Human beings are wired to sense authenticity, and when someone's emotions are only performed, something inside us feels the difference. That subtle coldness behind the smile is one of the quietest yet most revealing signs of hidden malice. Watch closely in unguarded moments. When no one is watching, when they think their role is complete, does their face return to indifference the moment you turn away? Do their eyes flicker with irritation before the next polite expression returns? These small glimpses often speak louder than their carefully chosen words. It is in silence, not speech, that truth tends to reveal itself. The Stoics would say that a person's inner life will eventually shape their outer presence. A heart weighed with envy, cruelty, or deceit cannot forever hide behind gentle expressions. Just as smoke hints at fire, coldness hints at absence of true empathy. The hidden sign here is the inconsistency between how someone appears and how they feel to you. Do you walk away warmed by their presence or chilled despite their politeness? Genuine goodness radiates naturally. Pretended goodness flickers, leaving shadows in its wake. If you learn to trust those quiet impressions, you will see through the smile to the soul behind it. Protecting yourself from evil does not mean becoming harsh or suspicious of everyone you meet. It means learning to set boundaries without losing your own humanity. When you recognize the signs, false charm, twisting words, disguised generosity, patterns of betrayal, you do not need to respond with anger. You need to respond with clarity. Evil thrives on reaction, on drawing you into its game of control and confusion. The wisest defense is not to fight on their terms, but to step away with your peace intact. The Stoics taught that while we cannot control the actions of others, we can always control our response. This is the shield no manipulator can break. Boundaries are not walls of bitterness, they are gates of wisdom. They allow in what is good, and they keep out what is harmful. It is not weakness to walk away from someone who seeks to harm you. It is strength to refuse to let their darkness shape your soul. In practical terms, this might mean limiting contact, refusing to engage in arguments designed to trap you, or seeking counsel from people you trust. It may mean speaking the truth plainly and then standing firm in silence when they try to twist it. Most of all, it means remembering who you are apart from them. The danger is not only what they do to you, but what you become if you let their cruelty change you. Protect yourself, but remain yourself. For the greatest victory over evil is not to mirror it, but to rise above it, untouched in spirit, clear in mind, and steadfast in heart. The greatest danger in recognizing evil is realizing that it is not only outside of us, it also waits within. We are quick to see manipulation, cruelty, and selfishness in others, but slower to admit the same seeds exist in our own hearts. The line between good and evil does not run between groups of people, but through every human soul. To face this truth is uncomfortable, yet necessary. For if you guard only against the enemy outside, you may forget to watch the enemy within. Evil grows quietly when left unchecked, when we excuse our own dishonesty, when we take pleasure in another's failure, when we justify control under the name of care. Small acts, repeated, harden into habits. Habits, left alone, become character. And character shapes destiny. What we hate in others can take root in us if we are not vigilant. The Stoics warned that self-examination is the surest defense. Marcus Aurelius wrote that each evening he reviewed his actions, asking where he fell short and how he might correct himself. This was not self-condemnation, but clarity, a way to keep the shadows from spreading. The climax of this struggle is not merely identifying evil people and keeping them at a distance. It is realizing that the fight is also within us. To live wisely is to guard against both, the deceiver who approaches with a smile and the deceit that tempts us in silence. The true victory is not simply surviving the schemes of others, but ensuring that we ourselves do not become what we fear. We began with a simple truth. Evil does not appear as a monster. It hides in plain sight, in charm that flatters, in words that confuse, in generosity that binds, in smiles that conceal. We have walked through the patterns, fear planted in quiet whispers, constant victimhood, joy in another's pain, isolation from truth, betrayal repeated, control disguised as care, and false righteousness that cloaks corruption. These are the signs many ignore until the damage is done. Yet awareness is the beginning of freedom. When you see clearly, you cannot be trapped so easily. When you understand that evil often wears familiar faces, you stop expecting it to look obvious. And when you recognize that the same seeds lie within your own heart, you learn the deeper task, to guard not only against others, but against yourself. The Stoics remind us that wisdom is vigilance. It is keeping your mind clear, your will steady, and your heart uncorrupted. No one can stop all harm from touching them, but you can decide how much power it holds over you. You can choose to live with boundaries, with truth, with clarity. Evil thrives in blindness. But once you see, once you refuse to excuse or ignore the signs, its power fades. In the end, the real shield is not suspicion or fear, but the calm strength of a mind that refuses to be deceived. With that strength, you can face the world as it is, clear-eyed, steady, and free. If this opened your eyes, stay with me and watch the next video.